Hey everyone, welcome to the next version of How I Use GreyNoise. This session is with Justin Varner, who I will let introduce himself in just a moment. But if you're new to GreyNoise or just new to these sessions, these are run by the community team, which my name is Supriya. I'm the community manager at GreyNoise. I have Michael with me, who's also part of the community team here. And we put these on for our community members, and they are done by community members. I could say that they're not sponsored, but I guess it kind of is. But the idea is that we're just giving folks a platform to talk about how they're using our product in their regular workflow, as part of side projects, whatever it may be. So if that's you or anyone that you know, you should definitely contact myself or Michael. You can just email community@greynoise.io if you're interested in doing a session. There may or may not be some premium swag involved. So without further ado, Justin, I'll let you go ahead and introduce yourself.
Awesome. Thanks for the warm intro, Supriya. It's nice to meet everyone. My name is Justin Varner. Best way to describe, what I am and what I do. I just think about security problems and how to solve them. And GreyNoise is one of those tools that I've been using since probably 2018 when I learned about it at DEF CON. And it's incredibly helpful in a lot of scenarios. And today I want to walk you through a couple of the ways that I'm using GreyNoise in conjunction with some other tools like Canary, Tines, and Rumble. And let's kick things off. So the first part of this to demonstrate the way that you can use GreyNoise, there's a service from Canary. It's a free server. It's Canary tokens. You can go on there right now and you can generate a variety of these Canary tokens, which are like digital tripwires. And one of the tokens I really love is the WireGuard VPN token that allows you to scan this QR code, drop a VPN profile on your phone with the idea that if somebody has compromised your device, they're going to try to activate a VPN and get access to sensitive networks. The moment that they do that, it'll fire an alert here. So I recommend everyone just create a QR token for your WireGuard and put it on your phone, because it's really hard to know otherwise if you have malware on your device. So after you do that, I intentionally triggered it just to show you what it looks like. When it's triggered, it'll say, okay, here's the source IP. So if somebody also scanned my QR code and put it on their device, it would show their IP. But in this instance, let's just say, this is my IP. So you can see it grabs some information, 98.117. Here's the reminder, and this is where GreyNoise comes in handy for me. So the first thing is, let's talk about Tines and this whole idea of SOAR, which is an acronym for Security Orchestration, Automation, and Response. Tines is a really neat service. They have a community offering, and it comes with a generous amount of daily resources and events. And what's neat about this is it's like a drag and drop low code option for automating a lot of interesting security events. And so I created a story here specifically to work through this scenario of when I get a notification about my any Canary token really for that matter, but in this case the WireGuard one, I want to take that IP, I want to run it through GreyNoise, and I want to figure out, is this IP worth investigating? And the way that GreyNoise allows you to do that and saves you incredible amounts of time is, rather than using a tool like Shodan, which is a traditional threat intel tool, and I love, don't get me wrong, but Shodan really is there to scan the internet and tell you everything that it can find about what's going on. Now, GreyNoise is kind of the meta threat intel. It looks at all the stuff from Shodan, from Alien Vault OTX. It looks at cloud content delivery networks like Cloudflare and AWS. It removes all that, and it leaves you with what you need to focus on, which is generally the unknowns. And in this case, my home IP is an unknown insofar as it hasn't been categorized as malicious or bad or opportunistically scanning the internet. So it's worth investigating. And what this story does is it has logic built in that says, okay, let's fetch the incident from Canary. Let's take a look at the IP. And GreyNoise has two different checks. It says, if the IP is noise and if the IP is riot, if these are false, like it is a noise and it's not part of rule it out, or sorry, yeah, rule it out, which is the CDNs, the Cloudflare, the AWS, that means that it's worth investigating. So then it flows down to the next phase. There's a thing called event transformation that really just normalizes and parses the JSON data from Canary, and then it goes and automatically creates an issue in Jira. Now this is really helpful for a lot of your security analysts, your SOC. Rather than manually going through and investigating tons of information, like thousands of IPs that hit your WAF every day, you can focus on the, say a couple hundred, because this is a real scenario that I helped a team solve. And, they went from spending 4 hours a day looking at IPs to, about 15 minutes. So that was valuable, so valuable in and of itself, and GreyNoise had a huge part in that. So let me just show you what the output looks like for the technically minded, just to give you a sense of each event and like where the pertinent bits break down. So you receive the alert, and that's just a webhook. Again, that's the Canary. You can generically send in any webhook with JSON data and a payload. You fetch the event details from Canary, and then when you look it up in GreyNoise, here's the body of the response. Exactly what I said here. Here's my IP. Here's the fact that it's not noise and it's not part of the riot. And because that's true, it moves on to the next step. Trigger if targeted, rule matched, build the results, so on and so forth. So it's really simple, easy way to automate and save a ton of time. And here's what it looks like in Jira. So you can, put in your own little custom description. In this case, I say, here's information on, the actual incident. And here's, in GreyNoise, when you look at the visualizer, which is totally free, you don't even need the enterprise plan for this. It'll automatically populate with the IP. And when you go to that URL, it'll say IP not found. So you can click on it. Now, if there's additional context with an IP that's known to be out there, that will show that as well. But this is really helpful because, here you go. Here's a ticket for you. But, I want to mention a couple other ways. This is my primary use case, but there's a lot of other cool things you can do with GreyNoise, and it's infinitely extensible. There's stuff that I definitely don't know that it can do, but I'll tell you some stuff that I have found to be really useful. So with Canary and the whole idea of deception technology, you have these honeypots, and there's a new type of honeypot from Think's called the research honeypot, and it's different from the production ones that you deploy inside of your network and that are very useful for your organization. These research honeypots are really useful for understanding what's going on the internet, and that's where GreyNoise shines. It's really a tool to understand the internet in a very efficient manner. And so one way that I've used this, and really I think what got me involved in the community and got me in touch with the great team at GreyNoise was I wrote this like very basic bash script. It's like 13 lines, but what it does is it pulls in the alerts from the outside bird, and you can pull in like every alert that's ever happened, or the paginated view of like the last 100, or whatever is your preference. And it runs all of these IPs from the alerts through GreyNoise, and similarly can also create, I haven't added it, but it can also go and create a Jira ticket. For now, it kind of just spits out a JSON report, and it tells you, is this malicious? Is this unknown? So it's a good way to get some, threat intelligence on who in the wild may be attacking you, and for whatever reason. There's a lot of noise on the internet, and that's why a service like GreyNoise exists, to help you sort through it and not waste so much time. And they have a community edition, which is free and great. And then with the enterprise, you get a lot more rich context, and highly recommend it. So there's 2 different versions of the script, and mostly the difference is just the API endpoint. There's another really awesome tool, Rumble, HD Moore. He created Metasploit. He started a company called Rumble a few years ago. It's awesome. What's neat about Rumble is it's a comprehensive asset inventory. And so what you can do with GreyNoise is you can do this with Canary too, in the way that I've set it up. You say trigger an alert, it gives you an IP, you store it in Rumble as part of your asset inventory, and then you can be checking GreyNoise either through the Rumble API or through Tines to figure out if any of your assets are like you know, compromise. If all of a sudden one of your servers starts reaching out to a command and control server, for example, or you see it engaging in log4j attacks, or it's been hit by log4j, you know, this is a great way to automatically figure that out. And GreyNoise has a tags feature, and these tags will dynamically compile a list of IPs like every day and maybe even more frequently. And it gives you this IP block list that you can then feed into your firewall. You know, I know they have support for like Palo Alto and some IDSs and IPSs, and that's really helpful because that's a quick way to just, you know, remove malicious entities. And similarly to the trends and the tags feature, you also have alerts, and alerts allow you to take the IPs and the IP blocks that you know are in your network, and also be notified if, you know, these machines are compromised. If all of a sudden your system is engaging in a DDoS attack from a Mirai botnet tag, that's not good. But you'll similarly be able to block your IPs, mitigate the impact, and start to go through your kind of incident response process and figure out forensically what's going on. So these are just but a few examples. And yeah, I wanted to open it up for questions, comments, concerns. I appreciate everyone being here. Do I need to unmute?
Sorry, I'm trying to mute in between squeaking, but yeah, so people, if you have questions, feel free to drop them in the chat. Like I mentioned, you can raise your hand. Happy to have you jump in and discuss. But yeah, Justin, I'm curious, is there anything that, oh, looks like we have questions actually.
Yeah, let's see. Times.
Okay.
Can you demo the bash script? I don't have the environment pulled up right now. I could, but I don't want to fumble through it like Bill Gates with his Windows 98 demo that blue screened on him. But let me see. I might be able to pull it up quickly. Hang on one second. But good question. All right.
There was another question while you're pulling that up that I think we can go ahead and answer, and that was around the Times integration.
Yep. I did answer it, and absolutely, that's the Times Community Edition, which is like a very generous amount of resources. Yeah, go sign up. It's really great. I highly recommend it. Let me see here. I think I can actually demonstrate this. Let's see. Okay, cool. Let's try it. I'm just going to go through once I figure this out. All right, here we go. Let me reshare here. Okay, you guys can see what's going on? Yes, yes.
Yes, we can.
All right, cool. So really simple. Let me just show you. I'm going to do the recent one, which I have set to just look at the last 100 events, because otherwise there's sometimes thousands of events that can happen a day, depending on how busy people are and how much you know, time they have on their hands. But so I'm just going to show you like the last 100 events from an outside bird that I have deployed. And right here, this is the enterprise version, but you can kind of see, you know, how basic it is, but it's really useful. I found it to be. And so all you're really doing here is you're pulling in from the bird the list of outside bird events, and it comes in like a zip file. And so you first, you know, I'm cleaning up the old zip, and then when you pull in the new file, you use some basic bash to clean it up. So you're going to only filter out with JQ source IPs, because that's all you really care about here. And you drop it into a text file, and then you go through each line in the text file, and you loop through in bash, and you run it against the GreyNoise API, and then you just compile the report, and it'll tell you like what kinds of interesting data you have and the current date. So if we just run this here, let's do, yep, it'll take a bit. Oh, no. See, Bill Gates. Here we go. Oh, I think I know why. Because this is why. Because you have to, GreyNoise is interesting, and you have to put key colon GreyNoise token. I'm pretty certain. Let's see here if that did it. Nope. Oh, it's there. That wasn't it. All right. Oh, I think I know why. Because I need to figure out what my node ID is. Stand by.
I think this is a part of
Oh,
the demo gods, right?
yeah, exactly. There we go. If it works. Ambiguous redirects. Let's see if it actually generates it. I've never seen ambiguous redirect. That's interesting. But it is running through each one, so let's take a look here. And if it actually pulled it up. Canary utilities. Looks like it did indeed generate a report. Let me show this to you. Huh, interesting. It pulled in the IPs, but it didn't seem to actually. Let me see. Let me make sure that to the GreyNoise crew. Let me make sure that I have the correct endpoint here. It should be, yep, noise context. That's right. Oh wait, I bet you it's another one of these formatting things. Weird. Oh, you know what? The new lines just killed me for some reason. I don't know why the formatting got messed up. But this is what I'm going to do just for the sake of the demo so that we don't have to keep sorting through this. I'm just going to create a report, and hopefully the new lines don't get me again. There we go. Live demo. Yep, it is indeed working now. Yes, thank you, Don. As a security practitioner, that is good advice. I will, in fact, be cycling my API tokens. So let me show you how cool. I mean, it's all JSON and, made to look pretty. But like, just to give you a sense of what it's doing. So, it creates this IP file here, and, it just literally just runs through each of them. And as you'll see, it starts from the top and it goes all the way down. Here's 100 IPs, the last 100 IPs. And it tells you like a ton of useful data. That's why GreyNoise is awesome. Here's one of the tags, ZMAP, so it's opportunistically scanning. This IP is originating from Vietnam. Here's the autonomous system number, like where it exists in the ISP block, some region, Vietnam. And this also shows you like the ports that are open. A lot of like botnets and scanners, they're not always secured properly. So a lot of times when they're scanning ports, they also have ports open. And this is a sure sign that this is probably a malicious entity. And it tells you like all the stuff you want to know. And so from this, you can imagine with Tines and in general, you can pull out bits of data and you can say, hey, I want to focus on, I want to only focus on, say, certain tags, or I want to look at certain classification, so on. You can really, with JQ, it doesn't have to be JQ, but any tool, even Tines, allows you to just extract bits from the body and really narrow in on anything. Maybe you only want to look at stuff that's happened from the past day, for example, or maybe you want to look at stuff historically that's been around a lot longer. You can do all of that, or even just stuff that's outside the United States. You have almost unlimited flexibility here, which is great. And then you just go through the list, and this is a very big file, but here's the next one. This is known to be malicious, so you could safely filter this out as part of the workflow I showed you with Tines. And the unknowns are really the ones that you want, So if I were to like approach this, I would say, okay, where's unknowns? And actually, so there's out of eight out of these IPs here are unknown. And so you can see that, let's see here, unknown, unknown, unknown. So there's actually a lot of non-tagged actors here. So these are ones that I would follow up on because they're part of the unknowns. But hopefully that gives you a sense, Don, of what it looks like. Appreciate you bearing with me through the demo.
No, it's great and thrilling to be able to see and go through that live. And I think everyone can agree that nothing ever works on the first try. And if you're not debugging at least a couple times, you're not actually working. So
yeah, exactly. Yeah.
No, appreciate that.
Yeah. I see another question from Don as well. A JSON beautifier. So JSON, I only am using the built-in one from package control. Open the suggestions there. I mean, I haven't actually looked at anything beyond that, but I like the idea about the CIDR IP prefixes. Yeah, totally. You could pull that out. That's good, and that's good feedback. I'll go back to the script and rework it, and see if things will merge it. Anything I can do, and feel free to also submit a pull request if you have functionality you see here that would be helpful. By all means, the script is pretty quickly thrown together and definitely imperfect, but I appreciate the feedback.
Awesome. And Justin, kind of as like, unless other folks have questions, my final kind of question that I'm thinking about is, of course, you have a ton of security experience, as a defender, research, et cetera. What's the action that you would want to take, like something like this? Obviously, Red Canary tools can be used like at scale. Obviously, they have enterprise offerings, so does GreyNoise, as does Time. So this is a great, like, small microcosm example. But how does this work at scale? And I'd love some advice on actionability of this intelligence.
Yeah, so I think what's neat about Thinks, or the whole idea behind it, and like this is something I'm going to talk about more broadly down the road, the conferences and stuff, is like when you approach things from this new perspective of high fidelity, low volume alerts, things like the Canary tokens, you really shouldn't be seeing too many alerts, maybe a few IPs a month, if that, as opposed to the thousands and thousands a day that you'll see in a typical SIM. And so as a result, as you scale and you grow as a company, you'll deploy more and more tokens and you might get a few more alerts, but it shouldn't be overwhelming. And this should fit perfectly into the small workflow that I have with Tines, insofar as like the resources you have available with the community edition. Now, as you scale out and let's say you want to start using GreyNoise to look up bulk IPs, like with the research honeypots, or maybe you have a WAF that you're using, like AWS WAF, and right now you're just sending tons of IPs through like Darktrace or Shodan or some service. That, as you grow, I see the need for GreyNoise becoming more and more apparent, because every additional IP would normally result in an analyst having to look it up and investigate. But GreyNoise is going to be able to tell you before it even gets to that point whether it's worth investigating or not. So as you can imagine, as the number of alerts goes up traditionally for a SOC, the value of GreyNoise goes up significantly. And I think this could be the difference between spending hours and hours a day on this and spending like 30 minutes as part of a triage process. But I know that there's so many other things that can be done with GreyNoise that I haven't even tapped into, like the whole packet capture capability and vulnerabilities that you can identify. So really, I see this as like, this was an absolutely essential component of Log4j last year, and trying to identify what hosts were vulnerable, because GreyNoise and Andrew in particular were publishing these IP lists that are now part of like the trends, and they're dynamically allowed. But these IPs I was able to use to basically block stuff with AWS WAF like dynamically, and that was like super helpful because otherwise you'd have to look at the IP, take it, put it in, like such a tedious manual process. And that's why I use GreyNoise, because it saves so much time, it enriches the data, and yeah, it's super helpful. So hopefully that answers your question, Supriya.
That's awesome. Well, folks, if there are any other questions, this is a great time to catch us. But Justin, thank you so much for this. This was immensely helpful and insightful,
Thanks.
especially
Thanks for
for all
me.
of us on the product side, of course.
Yeah, and thanks for appreciate it, everyone.
Absolutely. Well, folks, you heard it here. We do these sessions, with folks that are interested in sharing how they're using GreyNoise. So again, if you're interested in doing your own How I Use GreyNoise session, please reach out to community@greynoise.io, and we'll set you up. And yeah, thanks so much, everyone.
Thanks, everyone. See you.